All right, so we're back out here for another night. I'm Jeremy, this is 710 Garage, and I'd like to say welcome back to you, Rick, and you, Brian. Pleasure seeing you again. Now, what's tonight's project? Well, all you guys know about this Trans Am from the last video. So this thing needs a whole bunch of tubing work and chassis work done on it, which now the tubing has arrived. You can see it here on the floor, but we can't bend it. The reason we can't bend it is because we've been running off this little baby compressor. Let me show you here. It's this little teeny guy, and it's about a 20-gallon tank on it. Takes a little while to build that up. And you know, an impact gun tightening one wheel on, it has to fire up. You gotta wait for it to build pressure again. So that's not gonna do when we need to bend all that tubing to make the new torque arm and panhard bar and get the anti-roll bar all in place on that. Now, some of you guys have seen it in the past. I'm sure most of the people that watch the videos have seen. I have a big old tank up here. The reason it's up there is because that compressor was a full unit. It was given to me, and luckily enough, I thought I'd be able to plug it in and use it. Problem is, it fell over at some point in its life, or got knocked over or whatever. And the big flywheel that's balanced to that compressor was broken. Not only that, it was a 15 horse 3-phase motor. So it ran on like 15 amps, which is no big deal. Problem is, I don't have 3-phase. Now, if I was to try and put a single phase 15 horsepower motor on there, not only is it about $7 grand to buy that motor, but it's also like 65 amps, which is just a ton of power to get this thing moving. So, all that stuff had to go. What we did was we stripped everything off the top so we had just a bare tank. Now, like I mentioned, this thing had got knocked over or kicked over or whatever at some point in its life. So every fitting on the whole tank is all broken. So we need to redo all the pressure sensors, all the tubing, all the valves, the fittings, everything. So, long story short, none of this stuff would work for what we were trying to do. Now, I was able to get a smaller compressor in between the two of these. It was about a 40 or 50 gallon tank, and obviously that has a smaller compressor on it, but it also has a smaller motor. So I was able to get that one. It was a 5 horsepower 3-phase, and again, I don't have 3-phase, so I couldn't run that. Now, what we were able to do, if you spin me around here, I've been looking for about a year now, and I haven't had any luck, but this thing came up on Facebook Marketplace, and I was able to pick it up. This is a 5 horsepower single phase motor, so we can run single phase. This is 5 horsepower, which is what that one was. The difference is this is 3,400 RPM, and that one's 1,400. So we need to drastically reduce the pulley size on here so that it doesn't spin the pump too fast and overheat it. So, anyways, long story short, we're taking 2 compressors, blending them into one with this new motor. But first things first, we can't do anything until we get that thing down, which, like usual, starts off a video with yet again some more cleaning. Let's jump over there. We're gonna use the tractor tonight. We're gonna get up there, we're gonna pull that stuff down. We're gonna get that old tank down here, and we'll revisit exactly what we have to do. Let's get on it. Apparently I'm really tired tonight. First you guys fall off this roof up here, and now look at this. If that's not the definition of hanging by a thread, I'm not exactly sure what is. If that would have went off, this whole tank and compressor would have went down there. Now this thing, according to the book, weighs 870 something pounds. Way more than I could ever try and pick up out of there. And if it fell down and damaged my nice new concrete, I'd probably be pretty upset. So, yeah, I guess we need to slow down and watch what we're doing a little bit more. Cross your fingers this doesn't roll off, please. now that my blood pressure is super high, and yeah, we're this far. Let's take a look at what we got here. So as you can see, this is our 3-phase motor. It says right up here, 3-phase. It is 1700 RPM, so it's half the speed of that one. So the pulley right here, we're gonna need to get one that's half the diameter. That way it'll slow it down half the speed. So we're gonna need to get this pulley half the diameter. Let's take a look at this compressor. So this is the compressor here, and I'm not exactly sure how many cylinders it is. I would assume it's 2 due to the oval shape. Oh yeah, it's definitely 2. Okay, so you have this large cylinder here, that'll be your low pressure, and then that kind of bumps it over to here, and this one, this smaller one, bumps it up to the pressure that goes down in the tank. Now, as you can see here, this fitting is broken off flush. This pipe here is broken off. There is a pressure relief valve that's right here, but that has a T in it. There's a T that goes out that way that used to go to this guy, and that's your safety switch. So that's going to tell it, hey, I've reached temperature, or I've reached the pressure, please turn off. So that needs to be repaired. That plug there is actually still intact, and I believe the drain on the bottom is no longer in the tank. So we're going to need to clean this tank up, get it kind of looking pretty, and then we're going to start drilling to mount these components to the top of it. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to use the compressor that's on here. Obviously, we're going to be using that in the future, so we're going to use that to drill the holes. And then what I am going to do is put the new motor over here, and I'm going to drill it according to where this pulley that we currently have that is too big, I'm going to drill it where that is going to be. So I know when I go to half the diameter of the pulley, the motor's going to have to come over a bit, and wherever that distance is, I'm just going to slot the two so that, you know, I have room for a belt. If I put a little bit shorter belt on, as the belt stretches, I can move it back out, and that'll give us, you know, kind of where we need to be and a little bit of adjustment. So that's the plan. Enough talking, let's get to it. I think the best course of action right now is to drill it, get everything mounted and ready, and then after that we'll go back and clean it and degrease it and, you know, make it look a little bit nicer. No point doing it now if we're going to be drilling and everything on it. So yep, let's do it and roll the time lapse. Alright, now like usual, I don't really have a plan when I start this type of project, and I wanted to mount that compressor to the top plate here, but it was all gross and nasty, so I figured I'd just wipe the top down. Then it went to the side of that top plate, then it went to the top of the tank, and while I didn't finish it all as you saw, I did some of it. So the plan is now, let's get that compressor back up on top, figure out which way it needs to spin, and then we'll put it on that side of the compressor and try to move a little bit forward. All right, so real quick, what the plan is here is I found one bolt hole right there that I can drop a bolt through, and that'll help us line up for the other 3. So the plan now would be is I'm going to measure off the back side of the case here from here to this edge, and then I'll go as far over as I can and measure from there to this edge, and we'll just try to get it straight this way to this top plate. So that's what the plan is. We're not too far off. As you can see, there's a hole right here, but we're far enough that we're not going to get it to work. So like I said, we'll get it straight, we'll drill some holes, we'll go from there. Alright, so next up we're going to try and pull this broken nipple out of this guy. So with that, we're gonna grab a pipe wrench. Hopefully this works. Now this one here is gonna suck, and that's because it's broken down underneath this top surface, if you can tell there, and it's too big diameter here to get my extractor set in. So what I think we're gonna do is take our air chisel and try to chisel it, kind of push it around. Okay, so next day, and we're back trying to get this compressor running. So I went down to the local industrial shop. They did not have the pulley that I need, but said that they may be able to get it within about a week. That doesn't do us any good trying to bend tubing for the Trans Am this weekend. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. Here's what I came up with. So I got $130 worth of fittings here, but if I take this stuff, I just loosely screwed it together to give you an idea, but I screw this in the end of the tank here. So now I'll be able to reduce down from the 1 inch to 3/4. I had a 3/4 ball valve, and then I can reduce down from there to a 1/4 inch. That'll get me into a male airline fitting. So my thought process is if I can run the little compressor, use this as like an air tool and plug it in, it should plumb the tank and increase our reserve or our capacity by filling the tank without that compressor. Now, I wanted to, like I told you, I wanted to get the output of the compressor put down into here, but I didn't have the torches here last night to get out that fitting down there. So what I'm gonna do is put the pressure relief valve back in it, so at least it plugs the hole. Now down here on this end, we have another one. So this is your automatic shutoff here, where all these wires are. And this says, hey, I'm up to pressure, turn the motor off. So this is gonna be a good spot for it. Let's see if it'll stay there. That'll be a good spot as it's nice and close to the motor. I can just run a little wire from here over to there. And then it's got a pressure relief on it too. So what I'm gonna do is plumb this fitting. Actually, I need the female, but we're gonna plumb an airline fitting in here. So I'll fill the tank from the end over there, and I'm gonna hook my airline to this and pull it out. Now we had one more hole, if you remember. That was the one that the bushing was broken off down inside. So this is 1.5 inches. We're gonna cap that guy right off. That won't be used at all anymore. And then what I did do was, if you come over here, I have a T here on this little compressor. So it should send pressure off this line if I don't want to use this extra tank, and it should send pressure off this line if I do want to use it. So this one will be plumbed over to the new tank, and this one here will be plumbed to our air tool. And because it's after the regulator, the two of these will have the same output pressure. So if I have this one as a reserve tank, it'll backfeed into here and come out that line. So that's the theory, that's the plan. Let's get to putting some pipe dope on these fittings, getting them reefed down in place. We're gonna fire that thing up and see if my idea works. Okay, so that was easy enough. As you saw, we just got the valve and our male fitting in there for the end of the airline. Now we're gonna go up here, get this 1.5 inch cap threaded in, and start moving that way on the tank. Okay, so we got our cap in. Next, we're gonna put in this little pressure relief. That's gonna go back where we took it out here in the middle. Just temporary, so we can use this until we get pulleys, belts, shroud, all that other stuff made. This will be the last thing that we change out for the hose that goes from the high pressure of the compressor down to the tank. As if this is still in there, we can still use this thing as a reservoir off that one. So this will be the last fitting that comes back out. Unfortunately, it's going back in. We just took it out. Okay, so like we talked about, we're gonna have this T. This is gonna go into the tank, pressure relief, out to our air tools, and then this eventually will be hooked up to the motor to say we're at the pressure, stop producing air. Now, because these are so wide, we're gonna have to take off both of these fittings here to be able to spin it down and screw it into the tank. Then we'll put these two back on. Okay, change of plan. Tried to get out that pressure relief and it broke right off. So what we're gonna do is just take this reducing bushing here out. We'll screw that down in and we'll just put our airline fitting on here. I'll get a new T and rebuild this process later. All right, so we got all the caps and plugs and everything we need in this tank, I believe, to make it hold air. Now, we do have a little bit of air left over in the actual compressor, our little one. So let's go ahead and take the air line here. We'll plug it in and we'll open the valve, see what happens. All right, so I don't know if you can hear it, but air is going into this tank now. And our pressure gauge is climbing. We're about 25 PSI in there right now. So I don't hear any air pissing out. I think we may have this licked. Let's go ahead and turn the compressor on, fill that up, and see what we get. All right, so filling it up, I had one little leak in here. So as you can see, I just sprayed some soapy water. It's coming out still just a little bit. Just barely. Let's see if you can get in there. See the little bubbles? So we're gonna crank that fitting up some more. I threw some soapy water on all the other connections and nothing. If I can't get it to seal it better than that, it'll still be fine. There's no way that little bit of air, I mean, we're getting more leaking out of this connection right here, this quick connect. So if that's the way it's gonna be, I'm happy with it. Now, I know we didn't quite finish this project, but we band-aided it enough to get through and do the job that we need to do. And sometimes, most of the time, that's what you gotta do to be, one, in business, two, to keep things rolling in and out, and three, to keep people happy. So sometimes you gotta MacGyver a little bit. Yes, this put us back some as we don't have a bigger compressor, but I think running the small one over here, as you can see there, just that little line, I think that's gonna work out just fine to bend up this tube for this Trans Am. So I'm gonna call this a win. Next week, we'll get our pulleys for the motor. I'll bring you back, I'll show you how we're gonna set that up and how we're gonna make our little shrouding so that you don't get your hands stuck in this here pulley or in the belt and get your fingers cut off. So, there you go. Thanks for making it this far in the video. And as always, hopefully we'll see you at the beginning of the week. Take care, get out in your shop, do stuff.